Listen, they hid our history on purpose, but we're bringing the truth back, loud and clear.
Flower in 1620, you're going to learn about that ship in 1619 called the White Lion. You're going to learn about our stories of resistance, of the contributions of Black Americans, and we will not be erased from the narrative of the country that our ancestors built. And then we see why they're trying to ban our history, right? Because once you learn your history, you don't accept your place. Once you learn your history, you challenge the way the power is wielded against the vulnerable. So that's why they want to outlaw our history, because history will radicalize us. History will open our eyes. There's a reason we're the only people in the history of the United States for whom it was ever illegal to learn to read and write. Because we know, right, that education leads to liberation. And you can't keep people down who understand their history.
The first president was a black man, not George Washington. What? Before you start crying, just shut up and give me 30 seconds to explain. And no, I'm not talking about Obama. I'm talking about John Hanson, the man who held the title under the Articles of Confederation, a full 8 years before George ever even fluffed that powdered wig. Hanson was a black man from Maryland, elected by the Continental Congress in 1781. And yes, they really called him the President of the United States in Congress assembled. But you won't see his face on your money, your walls,
nope,
or in those crusty history books everybody swears by. Funny, right? Almost like somebody decided which names get remembered and which ones get quietly swept away. And that's why...
Burbank, California, 1957. What? Disney had never hired a black animator, and when they finally did, they didn't announce it. A 21-year-old named Floyd Norman walked into Walt Disney Studios with a sketchbook in a quiet understanding. He would be the only black person in the room. No press release. No diversity program. Just one animator who saw his portfolio and said, "This kid can draw." So Floyd drew. He animated woodland creatures in Sleeping Beauty. He brought charm to The Sword in the Stone. He helped shape The Jungle Book, and Walt Disney himself noticed. Walt pulled Floyd into story development, a rare honor reserved for artists who understood not just how to draw, but how to make characters matter. All of this happened while Floyd worked in a studio that barely acknowledged black people existed, in an America still fighting segregation. He didn't protest, he didn't make speeches. He showed up and did extraordinary work. When he left Disney in the late 60s, it wasn't failure, it was vision. He co-founded a studio making films where black kids were heroes, scientists, and adventurers, decades before Hollywood was ready. Disney called him back, then Pixar, then Disney again. From Sleeping Beauty to Toy Story 2, Monsters, Inc., Mulan, and beyond. Floyd's pen-shaped childhoods for over 6 decades. When Disney tried to retire him at 65, he refused. He said he was re-fired. Today, in his 90s, Floyd Norman still draws. Not because he has something to prove, but because he loves the work. Share this so the door he opened never closes again. Comment, "He drew the way," if this story surprised you, and follow for the history they never taught you.
And every time we created something big, it was destroyed, burned down.
Like where?
What are you talking about?
Oh, wait. I got this one. Don't worry. Wilmington, North Carolina, Eatonville, Rosewood, Tulsa, Philadelphia, Chester, Pennsylvania, Wilmington, North Carolina, Blackwater, South Carolina,
in Jersey.
Yeah, you know, there were plenty of places. Anytime we had any infrastructure, 2 things happened. They decided to integrate it. Look at have you been to Central Park? You know what Central Park is, right?
It's a park.
No, it's not. Central Park was actually a place called Seneca Village. It was when freed black people decided to converge in one area, and they decided to redistrict that area, even though they owned the land and the houses that they built free and clear, and they destroyed those people, displaced those people, and built a park around it. There's an old song Joni Mitchell sang, said, "Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone." They paved paradise and put up a parking lot.
Ancient Egypt is one of the most misunderstood civilizations on Earth. Hollywood lied. Colonial textbooks distorted the truth. Today, Africa Rise debunks 10 major myths about ancient Egypt that many people still believe. Number 10. Ancient Egyptians were not African. False. Ancient Egyptians were indigenous Africans. Their art, DNA studies, and historical records clearly show deep African roots. Number 9. The pyramids were built by slaves. Wrong. Skilled paid workers built the pyramids. Archaeological evidence shows workers' villages, wages, and medical care. Number 8. Egyptians were obsessed only with death. No. They celebrated life, science, beauty, love, and knowledge. The afterlife reflected how much they valued living well. Number 7. Cleopatra was Egyptian. Cleopatra was Greek Macedonian from the Ptolemaic dynasty. She ruled Egypt but did not represent ancient Egyptian origins. Number 6. Egypt was isolated from Africa. Completely false. Egypt traded, intermarried, and shared culture with Nubia, Kush, Punt, and the rest of Africa. Number 5. Hieroglyphs were just pictures. Wrong. Hieroglyphs were a complex writing system used for science, religion, governance, and philosophy. Number 4. Ancient Egyptians didn't know advanced science. False. They mastered astronomy, medicine, engineering, mathematics, and calendar systems still used today. Number 3. All pharaohs were men. No. Powerful women ruled Egypt, including Hatshepsut and Sobekneferu, centuries before Europe allowed women leaders. Number 2. Egypt was only one civilization. Incorrect. Ancient Egypt lasted over 3,000 years, with multiple dynasties, cultures, and transformations. Number 1. Africa contributed nothing to world civilization. This is the biggest lie of all. Ancient Egypt influenced Greece, Rome, religion, science, architecture, and global knowledge. Africa's history was hidden, but it can't be erased. Support African knowledge, culture, and pride by shopping Africarized merchandise at www.africarized.kelvinjasi.net. Like, share, and subscribe for more truth they never taught you. This is Africarized, reclaiming African history, one story at a time.
Stop the lies. Africans discovered America, not Columbus. Before you start crying, shut up and give me 6 seconds to explain. Mali's Emperor Abu Bakr II launched an expedition in the 1300s. 2,000 ships sailing west into the Atlantic. Arab historians recorded it, and crops from Africa like yams and bananas show up in the Americas before Columbus. Abu Bakr didn't vanish, he paved the way. Columbus came 200 years later and got the credit. The real first transatlantic explorer wasn't European.
Nope.
It was African, which is why.
You go to Nigeria, which is, if not the most corrupt nation in Africa, and it is, it could be the most corrupt nation in the world.
Now here's America, 226 years old. You love democracy, but they're in Africa. You're trying to force these people into a system of government that you just have accepted. 30 years ago, black folk got the right to vote. You're not in any moral position to tell anybody how corrupt they are. You should be quiet. When you have spilled the blood of human beings, has Nigeria dropped an atomic bomb and people in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, have they off millions of Native Americans? How dare you put yourself in that position as a moral judge? I think you should keep quiet, because with that much blood on America's hand, yes, there's corruption there. Yes, there's mismanagement of resources. Yes, there is abuse. There's abuse in every nation on earth, including this one.
Can you think of one more corrupt?
Yeah, I'm living in one. Yes, you've done a hell of a thing on this earth, so you should not be the one to talk. You should be quiet when it comes to moral condemnation, in my judgment.
Africa was not always called Africa. Before maps, before borders, before Europe, Africans didn't wake up calling their entire land one name. Ancient people used regional names: Kemet in the Nile Valley, Kush in Nubia, Libya to the Greeks, Ethiopia for lands south of the Sahara. The word Africa itself first appears in Roman records, referring to one region near Carthage, not the whole continent. Over time, that regional name expanded through empire, maps, and power until it labeled everything we now call Africa. So, when people argue about names like Alkebulan, the real question isn't what was the one true name. The real question is who had the power to name the world and who didn't.
Stop scrolling if you want to witness real courage. In 1865, after emancipation, Southern states tried to keep black people oppressed by passing harsh black codes. But African Americans refused to stay silent. Brave men, women, and children organized protest marches, filling the streets to demand justice. They risked their lives, facing violence and arrest, but their spirit never broke. These marches sparked nationwide attention, inspiring boycotts and mass migrations. Their bold resistance helped pave the way for civil rights. Like and follow for more untold black history.
Black people fought their way out of slavery. Yes, we did. It's called the Gullah Wars. Go look it up. I did a whole lecture on it. They beat the American Navy and the American Army, defeated President Andrew Jackson for freedom. Do not let them tell you that the Emancipation Proclamation freed us. No, the Seminole Indians are not an actual group of Indians. It's a group of black Indians as well as black Africans who clicked up, formulated a military, and defeated the United States of America for their freedom. Okay? And in order to subdue and subjugate the black people, to make us feel like we was at the mercy of white people and they just let us go out of the goodness of their heart to keep us docile to this day. That is the story that they formulated.
History shouldn't even be called history at this point. I can't believe that I never learned that there were concentration camps for black people. I can't believe that the only concentration camps that I ever knew about was from the Holocaust. Not diminishing those in any way, but I just think this is insane. I wasn't surprised to hear that the enslaved people that were quote-unquote freed in the South after the Emancipation Proclamation were actually not free. Like, that's not surprising to me. What did send chills down my spine was finding out that over 20,000 black men, women, and children were forced into a concentration camp called the Devil's Punch Bowl in Natchez, I think that's how you pronounce it, Natchez, Mississippi. They were promised a better life. They were promised so much that they would get a beautiful place of their own, because a lot of these white areas were being overpopulated once the enslaved people were quote-unquote freed. So they herded them over to the Devil's Punch Bowl. And those same military troops that freed them forced them into this ravine with barbed wires around it, where they were forced to work without compensation. They didn't have food, they had no water, and they were left there. They were left there. Can you imagine leaving the atrocities of slavery and that's what you're met with? Can you imagine being parents? Can you imagine being parents, having to watch your kids sit there and starve? You look up at the barbed wires and you realize that there's no escape. And you're watching your loved ones drop like flies around you from disease and starvation. And you're forced to bury them in unmarked, shallow graves. Over 20,000 people unalived in a matter of a year. The people at that time got exactly what they wanted. And so yeah, to this day, there are peach trees grown over the ashes of the people that didn't get a chance at life. And there have actually been a lot of reports of people getting sick from eating those peach trees, probably because of the soil. I mean, hey, just a guess. So yeah, this is insane. The fact that we focus so much on reading To Kill a Mockingbird so all of my classmates could turn around when the N-word popped up, instead of actually learning the true history and giving these people the respect of talking about them, sharing their story, and not trying to erase them. Yeah, so anyway, y'all, as always, make sure you like and follow and comment down below if you want to keep decoding history with me.
Oi, them not bad like the lion. I them not bad like the lion. Boy, disrespect them get fryin'. Put the whole of them in the fire. This little lion, them a dying. Oi, so I see I live it every time. Little lion when you bad all the while. Oi. Well, enough for them can't sleep at night, them all a worry and fret. A true lion, them want for disrespect. Them don't get the warning, this is the threat. I said Morocco and all a whole city red.
There were black people on this continent 4,000 years before Columbus was born. Right. We need to stop believing the myth. In this country, what we call education is actually indoctrination. And it takes us from the age of 5 to the age of 18 to thoroughly indoctrinate people so that they will believe in the myth of white superiority. And it is a myth. Right. Now, you can't do that while you're teaching that Columbus discovered America. Right. There were black people on this continent 4,000 years before Columbus was born. Right. We teach black history in the schools as if it started with slavery. We all came from the same black women 300,000 to 500,000 years ago. The human race began with black women. My cousins, and you are all my cousins. Make no mistake about this, we are all 30th to 50th cousins because we all have the same black great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother back there 300,000 to 500,000 years ago.
Did you know this is the only place in the USA where the president can't enter even if he wanted to? And what's most shocking is you have never heard of this place before. This 2,700-acre private zone is so off-grid that it won't appear on any map, and it is controlled by fewer than 2,500 of the wealthiest men on Earth, many worth over $100 billion each. Access is locked behind a membership list that has a 20-year wait time. It is the second most surveilled place behind Area 51 in the US, with 24/7 infrared perimeter sensors, private patrols, and a security network that costs over $5 million a year. But here's the twist. The president is only allowed once a year, and even then he must enter as a guest, not as commander-in-chief. Every July, the president, along with 2,000 of the world's most influential men, gather here for a 2-week retreat where phones, cameras, and journalists are banned 100% with zero government oversight. This place is Bohemian Grove, hidden deep inside the California redwood forest.
I have never seen an alcohol company using a drunk person for any advertisement. Are they ashamed of their customers?
You keep arguing with people when it's the spirit behind them that's after you. Baby, you can't fight spirit with flesh. You keep clapping back, but all that's doing is draining your oil. Every petty comment, every triggered moment is costing you peace. And you can't afford to waste, baby. The enemy ain't loud, baby. He's strategic. He'll use the people closest to you. He'll wrap confusion in familiar voices. He'll stir up chaos on your way to clarity. Not everything deserves your reaction. Some things require your restraint. Don't scroll yet, baby. This next part gonna save your mouth and your mind. God said, if you want me to fight for you, you gotta stop stepping in my way. You pray for peace, then go starting debates. You ask for protection, but keep texting demons. Let me be your defender, baby. You ain't built to battle everything. You don't have to prove your point when God already cleared your name.
Black history isn't just about slavery. Do you know Philip Emeagwali, a Nigerian scientist, used supercomputers to make the internet faster? Some call him the father of supercomputing. Henrietta Lacks's cells, taken without her knowledge, helped develop vaccines, study cancer, and even send astronauts into space. Matthew Henson reached the North Pole in 1895, years before most explorers, defying impossible conditions. Shaka Zulu transformed warfare with military strategies so advanced they're still studied today. Dr. Patricia Bath invented a laser device that restored eyesight, becoming the first black woman to receive a medical patent. The Kingdom of Axum in Ethiopia had its own coins, written script, and controlled trade across Africa. A powerful empire for centuries. Benjamin Banneker, a free black man in the 1700s, built America's first clock entirely from wood, and even predicted solar eclipses. Fela Kuti used music to fight corruption and inspire millions. His Afrobeat movement revolutionized music across the world. These are just the beginning. Appreciate this post by clicking on the subscribe button for more hidden Black history.
We had to fight to prove we were human beings before we could fight for freedom. A lot of us don't get this, Charlemagne. Do you realize you're the only people in world history who are not even considered people? We had to fight to prove we were human beings before we could fight for freedom. People leave that step out. It wasn't a fight for freedom. It was a fight for humanity, then a fight for freedom, then a fight for equality, and now we at stage 4, a fight for survival. You're the only people who was not allowed to learn by law. You're the only people who are dehumanized by law, okay? And you are the only people who the world benefited from your and did nothing, absolutely nothing about it, but the entire world benefited from you. So Black people don't owe no explanations to nobody. They owe them to us. But before they can be external reparations, there has to be internal reparations.
Someone who gets defensive every time you tell the truth already knows they're guilty. They don't argue the point, they argue your tone. They don't fix the issue, they attack your delivery. They don't hear your heart, they hear the threat to their ego. That's not a misunderstanding, that's avoidance. And anyone who fears the truth will always turn the truth teller into the problem.
Why do you want to say Cassius Clay when Howard Cosell and everybody is calling you Muhammad Ali? Then why you got to be the one of all people whose color to keep saying Cassius Clay?
Howard Cosell is not the one who's going to fight you. I am.
You making it really hard on yourself now. Why don't you call me my name, man?
Well, what's your name? You told me your name was Cassius Clay a few years ago.
I never told you my name was Cassius Clay. My name is Muhammad Ali, and you will announce it right there in the center of that ring after the fight if you don't do it now. Now, back off of me, man.
Y'all listening? Because I'm going to say this once. Life like a pair of worn-out shoes, young blood. You can complain about the holes, or you can learn where to step so your feet don't get wet. That's on you. Ain't nobody going to carry you over the puddles. You hear me? Step smart. That's how you stay dry out here.
One of your biggest tests in life is how you handle people who mishandled you. Because revenge is easy. Anybody can clap back. But real strength is rising above it. Don't let their actions pull you out of character. Stay solid and stay growing.
I'm going to say something and I want you to hold on to it, all right? Get your cameras ready because this is game. Do not allow my confidence to offend your insecurity. Do not allow my confidence to offend your insecurity.
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 1985. What if I told you the U.S. government bombed its own citizens? And most Americans have never heard this story. In May 1985, city police dropped a military-style bomb from a helicopter on a residential house in the Cobbs Creek neighborhood. The target was MOVE, a mostly Black organization known for challenging police brutality, fighting environmental racism, and living a back-to-nature lifestyle. What started as a standoff escalated into a military-like assault. Police fired more than 10,000 rounds of ammunition before ordering explosives dropped onto the roof of the MOVE house. The explosion ignited a massive fire that the city refused to fully fight. That blaze didn't just destroy one home, it burned down more than 60 houses, left over 250 people homeless, and killed 11 MOVE members, including 5 children. Yes, children died. Yes, entire families were wiped out. And no city officials were ever criminally charged for ordering a bomb on a residential block. This wasn't war. This was a city bombing its own people. If this shocking moment in Black history was buried, that's exactly why I'm telling you now. Comment, never forget. If you refuse to let this stay hidden, follow for more Black history they never taught you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I saw this meme that said Mississippi only officially abolished slavery in 2013. That's crazy. Well, no, it ain't crazy. I mean, this is America where racism does not exist. Mississippi said officially. They was holding out. They've been holding out since the Civil War. Like, hey, just wait. We gonna figure it out. Like, you never know. You never know. So you mean to tell me it was legal all this time? Which is crazy to me because my daddy used to tell me stories about, when he was young, sometimes you would like black kids would go missing. I ain't trying to start no conspiracy or nothing. I'm just saying, if you got a state that never abolished slavery, and then you got, kids in South Carolina go missing and people just never see them again. He was like, man, it would happen all the time. People just get kidnapped and never say, I ain't blaming nothing on nobody. I ain't saying nothing. I'm just saying. It wasn't illegal until 2013. I mean, as a state, like, hey, I'm gonna do some research and see what's what. And if you ain't one of us, I'm gonna just say that. Don't be coming in my comments talking about what all ain't true. Cause you can't say, you know what I mean, what happens in a certain community if your ass ain't in the community to see or know. So hush.
Well, what most people who know my work know is that I don't only teach young blacks to be militant, I teach them to be intelligent, substantive, to make analysis. I think that America has to stop painting young black people as being uncivilized and irrational, which is what they've done in the coverage of this story in Los Angeles. I think that we have to look at the fact that black people didn't just run outside and burn out their houses because they were angry. The Beverly Center was wrecked, and that's in a white area. Korean businesses were targeted because that Korean woman shot and killed Latasha Hollins, and she was convicted of the crime, and she did not 1 day in jail. And we got 25% of our black male population behind bars doing exorbitant sentences for small crimes, and we don't get justice. These are the reasons why people were attacked.
Mississippi, 1942. When America's hospitals wouldn't admit black patients unless they were dying, one town did the unthinkable. In the all-black community of Mound Bayou, Mississippi, black residents didn't beg for care. They built their own full-scale hospital. This wasn't a wing or a clinic. This was Extraordiare Hospital, funded, designed, and staffed entirely by black hands, funded by black membership dues, and run by an African-American fraternal organization that said, we don't need permission to care for our people. They raised the money themselves. They bought the equipment. They hired black doctors, nurses, technicians, janitors, and cooks. No outside help, no federal funding. Inside were operating rooms, maternity wards, and dozens of beds. By the mid-1940s, this hospital was performing over 1,200 surgeries a year, at a time when Jim Crow medicine said black lives weren't worth dignified care. For just a small annual fee, families received affordable, respectful health care. Not charity, not pity, but self-determination. Extraordiare Hospital stood for decades as a monument to what unity, pride, and vision can build when the world shuts its doors. It was a place where black babies were born, black bodies were healed, and black dignity was restored. You won't read this in most history books, but it happened. We built it. Drop a comment if this is your first time hearing about Extraordiare Hospital, and follow for more untaught truths they tried to erase. Burbank, California, 1957. Disney had never hired a black animator, and when they finally did, they didn't announce it. A 21-year-old named Floyd Norman walked into Walt Disney Studios with a sketchbook and a quiet understanding. He would be the only black person in the room. No press release, no diversity program. Just one animator who saw his portfolio and said, this kid can draw. So Floyd drew. He animated woodland creatures in Sleeping Beauty. He brought charm to The Sword and the Stone. He helped shape The Jungle Book, and Walt Disney himself noticed. Walt pulled Floyd into story development, a rare honor reserved for artists who understood not just how to draw, but how to make characters matter. All of this happened while Floyd worked in a studio that barely acknowledged black people existed, in an America still fighting segregation. He didn't protest, he didn't make speeches. He showed up and did extraordinary work. When he left Disney in the late 60s, it wasn't failure, it was vision. He co-founded a studio making films where black kids were heroes, scientists, and adventurers, decades before Hollywood was ready. Disney called him back, then Pixar, then Disney again. From Sleeping Beauty to Toy Story 2, Monsters, Inc., Mulan, and beyond. Floyd's pen-shaped childhoods for over 6 decades. When Disney tried to retire him at 65, he refused. He said he was refired. Today, in his 90s, Floyd Norman still draws, not because he has something to prove, but because he loves the work. Share this so the door he opened never closes again. Comment, "He drew the way," if this story surprised you, and follow for the history they never taught you.
What if slavery wasn't just about forced labor, but about consumption? In The Delectable Negro, scholar Vincent Woodard exposes a history most textbooks avoid: how Black bodies were treated not only as property, but as something to be used, consumed, and erased. This isn't an easy story. It's unsettling. And that's exactly why it matters. These hidden histories shape how power, race, and identity still work today. If you want short, serious breakdowns of African American books that challenge the official story, subscribe to Mini Book Podcast African American. Read deeper, think sharper, don't look away.
Have you ever swam in a lake? You might be floating over a black town. Across the U.S., thriving black towns were erased, not with fire, but with water. Oscarville, for example, was a black town in Georgia. It had a population of about 300 people, but when the white folks decided they wanted to build a lake, they flooded our homes, churches, and schools. They called it urban planning, but we call it drowning history. Coahuila, Alabama, same thing. Thriving black community, then bam, flooded. Seneca Village in South Carolina was an all-black town. It had a hospital, a school, a library. And then one day, the government just decided to erase it. They flooded it. Now, anytime you go swimming in a lake, ask yourself,
Most people think slavery was just about cotton fields in America. Wrong. It was the Spanish who first enslaved Africans in the 1500s for sugar plantations in the Caribbean. Then the Dutch, French, and English turned it into an industry. A calculated, profit-driven machine. Here's what they don't tell you. The average lifespan of an enslaved African on a sugar plantation was 7 years. 7 years. The work was so brutal that slave owners calculated it was cheaper to work people to death and buy new ones than to keep them alive. They did the math on human lives. This wasn't brief. It was 300 years of systematic human trafficking. Over 12 million Africans were shipped across the Atlantic. For every person who survived, 2 died. 2 million bodies thrown into the ocean. Why did it last so long? Because it built empires. European banks and cities like Liverpool and Bristol became wealthy from human cargo. The Industrial Revolution, funded by slave labor. Your textbooks call it economic progress. This ended just 160 years ago. People alive today had great-grandparents who were enslaved. The truth isn't hidden because it's complicated. It's hidden because it's uncomfortable. And uncomfortable truths are the ones we need to remember most. Share and like this video, and don't forget to subscribe so you never get to miss our posts updates.
Had something before we left Africa, something more than rhythm. I mean, we had a high culture. Culture was so high that great artists in the world are still borrowing from it. Now here's a sculpture by an unknown African artist, and here's what Paul Klee took from it. Now here's a work by an unknown black African, and Pablo Picasso liked what he saw. Another African design, and Modigliani swiped it, or he was influenced by it, or whatever polite word you want to use. Another black African artist, and Picasso didn't change it very much. I mean, when you look at this copying, you gotta give us a little more than rhythm. You gotta give us style. Now, if you tell the history of right, you got a big problem on your hands.
After the Yamasee, something even more dangerous emerged. In the swamps of Florida, escaped Africans didn't just survive. They formed their own nation. They became known as the Black Seminoles, led in part by a strategist known as John Horse. Free, armed, living alongside Seminole warriors as equals. They controlled land the United States couldn't dominate. They knew the terrain. They understood European warfare, and they refused to return to slavery. American officials labeled them a threat, not because they were violent, but because they proved freedom was possible. The U.S. Army failed to destroy them, so the government changed the rules and launched a war meant to erase them completely. But they met a people who fiercely resisted, the Black Seminoles.
You were not fighting for the freedom and independence of black people.
I can't believe exactly what I'm hearing. We went to war in World War II to fight for the freedom of speech. We didn't fight for freedom of speech of hatred. Many of our members are National Commander of Jewish War Veterans, and over 50,000 of our men that's fighting for your right to speech here now. I don't understand why you come out with such hatred.
You make me sick to my stomach with that. Because at the same time that you were fighting, you were not fighting for the freedom and independence of black people. Soldiers, black soldiers in segregated companies lost their lives on foreign soil there, but would have to come back and fight just to get a bite to eat, not have to go to the toilet on the side of the road somewhere in the bushes. So you're nothing but hypocrites, and you won't pull that small-time stuff over me.
They lied to you. The prophets in the Bible were black, and I can prove it. But stop pretending ancient Israel looked like a Hollywood movie. You really think Moses, raised in an African royal palace in Egypt, could pass as white? No. Nah. They'd never have taken a pale foreigner as one of their own. Simple logic. That means he looked like them, which means he was black. Now look at Song of Solomon 1:5. I am black and beautiful, O daughters of Jerusalem. That's in your Bible. Jesus, born in Bethlehem, then hidden in Egypt, hiding a white baby in Africa. Make it make sense. They whitewashed everything, and you still worship a version of history designed to erase you.
I read a New York Times piece on a 100-year-old survivor of the Tulsa Massacre. And my question was this: what's the Tulsa Massacre? You know, I was taught American history every 3 years growing up. 5th grade, 8th grade, what comes after 11th grade, and then I studied in junior college, and I've read it ever since for pleasure. How is it that it wasn't until 2 years ago that I heard about the Tulsa Massacre? How is that possible? I've heard about Custer's the Little Bighorn. I heard about the Alamo. You know, I heard about the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. You know, I heard about all kinds of disasters in which people died. But I had never heard about this thing that happened in 1921, only 3 years before my dad was born. In the same year that Donna Reed was born, we didn't hear about this thing that happened in which essentially one of the most successful black communities in America, Black Wall Street, in which everybody was not only burned out of their homes and their businesses, but then driven out of the city limits by an angry mob of, I'm sorry, white people. How is it that this was not taught to me? Because I tell you, at the age of 10, when I was in 5th grade, living in Oakland, California, that would have been a moment of enlightenment for me. That would have told me something very, very different about the city I lived in. Not just American history or the city of Tulsa. And it made me mad. It made me mad that somebody had somehow made an editorial process of what was appropriate for us to learn about our own American history. It made me angry that it took until I was, I'm 60, I'll be 66, just about 2 weeks after Juneteenth, I'll turn 66. And it took me 54 years in order to find this out. It's not right. It's not right, and it's doing a disservice to all of America.
Our main problem is why we considered them human in the first place. White people didn't even consider us human, 3/5 human. That was never our problem. Our main problem is why we considered them human in the first place. If anybody 3/5, look at that behavior. Who eat people? Who would feed a baby to an alligator? Who would do that? Who would exterminate buffaloes just so people wouldn't have nothing to eat, wouldn't have a source of food, just to punish people? Who would give people disease-ridden blankets? Who would do this? Who would create black codes? If you walking along the train line, you going to prison. Vagrancy laws. Same thing they doing now. Our issue isn't our humanity. Our issue is trying to prove our humanity to people who don't behave in a humane way.
At that time, there was more black wealth in Tulsa than any other place in America. Chicago, Detroit, New York. What's happening in Oklahoma? First, there was an attempt to make an all-black state with indigenous people. That's why Oklahoma had more municipalities, had more cities that were all black. Langston, Muskogee, and so forth. And Tulsa was the center of the financial and commercial activity. So when they attacked Black Wall Street, the white businessmen were being out-competed by the black businessmen, and they just burnt down all of our section of town.
Vengeance, jealousy.
Oh, yeah, man.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that because I didn't
realize
realize that there were so many blacks in Oklahoma. Now, growing up, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't know black folks were in Oklahoma.
Why are the noses always missing on black statues?
What?
Go to any museum. Egyptian statues, nose gone. Nubian queens, nose missing. But when you look at Greek and Roman copies, nose fully intact. Why? Because the nose reveals identity. A wide nose marks African heritage. So they chiseled away the evidence, then shrugged and said, "We don't know what they looked like." But the truth is, they knew exactly what they looked like, and that's why